All right. First of all, thank you so much, Anupam, for accepting our invite. It's been close to 3 years that my team has been trying to get in touch with you. Sometimes dates work, sometimes they didn't. Yeah.
Just 3 years?
Yeah.
जल्दी मान गए हम?
I think the Shark Tank effect, after that, when we do a poll every year on which speakers you want to hear on People Matters platforms, your name came as one of the top three.
टॉप में कौन था?
Unfortunately, top में हमारे कुछ HR technology के leaders थे from US and all, because of course it's the core domain as well. But I think your name was definitely on the first three.
Okay, here you have me.
Awesome. I'm very excited. I want to take...
Actually, same here. To be honest, this is the first HR conference I've been to. And I must admit, a lot has changed in the last 8-10 years. Just to give you some context, I've always have a real issue with HR all my life because... and I'll tell you why, because historically in HR, at least when I came back to India and I was building, for me, we are called people group. There was a reason to say people group because for us, we realized, at least for me, I realized that the future of the economy and future of business is going to be centered around people. So if you have the best people, you have the best talent, you can nurture them, that becomes your core competency more than anything else. So in a very simplistic manner, we called it people group. Sometimes simplicity is the most elegant or more sophisticated solution. But my pet peeve remained for many years that, and I've hired many HR managers, is at that time most people came through labor operations backgrounds. So people who personal management, right? They worked in factories and so on. And so their outlook was always ops. And they measured themselves by how many people, kitne logon ka payroll kiya. And for me, who was trying to create a people-centric organization, it was extremely frustrating for many years. But so it's great to see, so many young, bright minds here. And if I have to take a quick poll, I would think very few people. How many people come from a labor background? Couple of you, right? So it's changed dramatically, and that's extremely empowering to see. Nothing against you, sir, but just to make a point.
No, we are transforming ourselves, Anupam, with how times are changing, and you'll be pleasantly surprised how many CHROs today challenge founders, challenge CEOs on people strategy. And as People Matters, we've always believed that talent is CXO's agenda and not just HR's job. If I was to put it, I think more number of CEOs when they reach out to People Matters for content, that's the second biggest thing that keeps them awake at night. First is, of course, market share and building the business and so on and so forth. But the second biggest challenge is, how do I get my people strategy right? So we fundamentally always believe that it's the job of the CXO and not just the HR person to enable talent.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's becoming even more important as we look out into the future. The best way, there wasn't a question in that, but I'll just segue into something that I believe. You guys have often heard the line. How many people have heard the line, culture eats strategy for breakfast? Almost all of you, right? It's kind of a cliche now. But I think cultures make a huge impact on organizations. But can somebody tell me what this bloody word means? We all talk about culture, particularly in HR. But I often ask people, tell me what culture means. Can you describe it for me? If you can't describe it for me, you can't get it done. Having a great culture means great outcomes. But please, anyone, give it a shot. What does culture mean?
Anyone? Yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Can you get a mic there quickly? Yeah.
So what I heard is common behavior across the entire organization based on common values. I would argue you don't want that. In today's dynamic world, you don't want common behavior. You want very complementary behavior, certainly, You want a lot of conflict, I would argue, because that is what gives rise to innovation and different perspectives and different points of view. When you have uniform behavior, you get groupthink. Groupthink will make you extinct in no time at all, right? We've seen that time and time again. Culture to me, so I thought about culture a lot, right? And this is a perfect place to talk about it. And I said, look, what is culture? Can we make a formula from culture? And after a lot of introspection, it occurred to me culture is fundamentally operating model multiplied by people's strategy. If either one is zero, your culture is zero. Now you'll ask me what is people's strategy and what is operating model, and that
We'll throw the questions back at you as well.
exactly. So I came prepared. So people strategy is simply why you hire, why you promote, and why you fire. Right? Who obviously is as part of that. The why captures the who. And operating model is simply your alignment cadence, which means how often the people align with each other. You know, some people call it reporting. I don't like that word. So I call it alignment cadence. Real-time metrics, that would be a great operating model. Everything real-time, right? And DRIs, which I love as a concept, which is directly responsible individuals. So every important metric has one person, right? So you know whose throat to choke. I like that. I like to have one throat to choke. So when you have that kind of structure, if you think about culture like that, it becomes more objective. And then you start to realize the HR's role in there, how critical it is. Because if your operating model is not great, but your people strategy is great, you're still zero. Which means the HR head has to influence the operating model, right? Because it doesn't matter how good a job they do, if the operating model is not working well, you're not going to get very far, right? So that was just my way of saying, or what you were saying, to just underscore the fact that CHROs increasingly need to be driving the operating model as well. Only then can great talent be great performers.
Thank you, Anupam. Maybe offline, I think there are great culture models now available. Many of them would be more than happy to share some of that work. We have tech available to quantify some of that as well, real time, for the CEO dashboard, boards, and I think we've done a lot of progress in that segment. So I'm glad that there is more tangible data available for someone like you to take that call. I think in my way, I think what people talk about when you are not in the room is the real culture. About you as a leader and about you as an organization. In the brand language that we talk about, and I've been a marketer in my life, what people talk about your brand when you are not around is the real brand. What people talk about when you're not in the room is the real culture. And people can define it today.
Yeah, absolutely. Cultures, values, all these things are not fancy things you write and put, in your lobby. You must have heard of a company called Enron. I'm sure they had amazing values also written in their lobby, right? So that is the furthest thing, right?
Yeah.
What the behavior, the language you speak, the signs, how you interact, how you escalate, all that determines culture. Like I said, operating model times people strategy.
I want to take a step back, Anupam, and go through your journey of as an entrepreneur, also someone who has built a culture, great culture at People Group. So I just wanted to show a few pictures because I feel picture is the memory that you want to give. I'm glad we did a bit of exercise on getting some of the early day pictures of Anupam. One he posted on LinkedIn yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Was this exercise resulting in?
I actually have no idea what pictures you're going to show. Pretty honest. I mean, you maybe my team or from the internet, but I'm as excited to look at them.
So talk to us about this picture, Anupam. This is definitely your early days in college.
This is a long time ago. This is when I was working in the US, and I used to come and visit, and I was my dog Duchess. She's no more, And so this is just, one of those. This is in London when I was visiting. I think it was London. Looks like it.
So you had a very interesting life in US. What got you to come back to India, think about what we now popularly known as Shadi.com and the People Group, with so many businesses? What was the trigger?
I couple of things, right? And there's some lessons in there as well, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of leadership and other values. But this was around 2000, and the dot-com bust happened. I don't know how many of you are aware, but the world was never going to be the same again. Everything looked like, this is the end of the world. And, our company where I was working, I had risen quickly to become director of strategic partnerships, and we had gone from 100 million to $40 billion in terms of valuation just in a 2-year period. We had lots of stock options. In my early 20s, I was worth millions. So I was flying on, cloud 9, and we could do no wrong. And then the dot-com bust happened. And so we went from 40 billion down to 60 million in a matter of less than 6-8 months. We triggered the NASDAQ drop on March 11, 2000, when we dropped about 66% in one day. But anyway, that's a longer story. But I got laid off as a result from my job, along with a lot of people. And two things happened. One, I'm not sure how many of you have worked in the US or are familiar with the US culture. But when you're laid off in the US, तो मतलब आपको एक वो डब्बा देते हैं गत्ते का, कार्डबोर्ड का, और उसमें आपको सब अपना जो भी 4-5-10 चीज़ें आप रखते हो टेबल पे, वो डब्बे में लेके मतलब you have to do the walk of shame. So it is the most demeaning and undignified thing that a human being has to go through. And it occurred to me, भाई ऐसा क्यों है यार, मतलब why would you do that? I understand people worry in the US, you'll take some secrets, you'll do some damage, maybe you'll hurt some people. But still, there should be some sort of empathy, right? And that kind of stayed with me, is empathy should not be mutually exclusive with success. Why should it be, right? And so that kind of stayed with me for a long time, and today as well, we try to practice that a lot. We have many examples of how we handle things during COVID, during the Mumbai floods, when we had a massive layoff. I can talk about that if you want, but I won't get into that too much. The other thing that happened, and this is not something I talk about a lot, but as HR people, I think, let me just mention it because it's important for you to understand. I got my first panic attack at that point as a result. I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with generalized anxiety disorder, panic attacks and things like that, but they're a real thing, right? And it was the most scariest moment of my life. And so I went through a really tough time for a couple of months. And as a result, what I started doing is and I did not do this as part of a plan. There was no grand, कि भाई इतना विजन है, ये करेंगे, वैसी कोई बड़ी बात नहीं थी. Visions are always retrofitted. कोई जो करके ही करता है, right? So I just needed a distraction. So I anchored myself into building something in India. I already had a small company here. 2-4 लोग hire कर रखे थे मैंने. And I anchored myself in that vision. And that just made me passionate. It made me jump out of bed every day. वो कुछ जोश आ गया था, जुनून आ गया था थोड़ा बहुत. And as a result, that vision kept expanding. I kept getting more excited. I kept getting more passionate. The lesson, and as a result, then I moved to India to build that company.
Yeah.
But what I took away from there, when I look back, is action is the lead domino. When you're stuck, so whether it is in a mental health issue like mine, or in a business dilemma, or in a HR dilemma, action is the lead domino, right? Once you start taking action in a certain direction, a lot of things start to happen. One thing leads to another. After that, sure, you can add on strategy, introspection. But so that's a big lesson that we took away. One is, empathetic success, and action is sort of the lead domino, at least during that time.
Yeah, but you didn't stop at just building Shadi.com. There's so many other businesses now. So you're the shark investments that you have done. Like you're now managing so much in your
In fact,
portfolio.
I think I'm an investor in Medibuddy.
Oh, really? Okay, okay, interesting. Medibuddy is here. Saibal is here. Uh, but I think it was also. I think you produced films, couple
Yeah.
of them. What got you excited about films?
Yeah, this was like a big lesson as well for me. But I'll talk about the lesson later. I'll ask your question. I'll answer your question directly. When I came back from the US and early days saw a little success with one or two businesses, an IT outsourcing business, Shadi.com. And I was starting to craft my vision for what would become the large industries in India. And I came up with this acronym, MERIT, which was media, entertainment, because the youth was going to grow quite a bit and they all needed, real estate, information technology, and so on. So that was the acronym, and media and entertainment was a part of that. And so we started a bunch of business. We started Moj Mobile, which was part of the entertainment vertical, which was India's first mobile gaming company, by the way. And very early days, way before our time. And part of that, we started People Pictures. And it was fundamentally a bet on that the industry would get institutionalized. वो टाइम पे सिर्फ पिक्चरें कैसे बनती थी बहुत अलग तरीका था. It was a very mom and pop type of game. तो उसको institutionalize करने के लिए शुरू किया था. And my prediction was that in 5, and those time movies used to do 5-10 crores in box office, just keep in mind. 15-20 crore तो बहुत बड़ी रकम हो गई. My prediction was that in 5 years, there will be 5 movies that will do 100 crores in box office.
Wow.
Unheard of. My friend Rajkumar's son had a bet with me. He said it won't happen. Guess what? It happened, but it happened in 7 years. Exactly 5 movies did 500 crores, right? So the direction was right, but the learning there was that you need to build depth before you build breadth, right? तो हम काफ़ी broad areas में चले गए थे. इतना depth नहीं था. I had come from a US overhang of building corporate cultures where you hire the best in the business and leave them alone to do their job and give them help when they need. And that strategy failed terribly. जिनको भी hire किया था, मतलब India was not ready. The professional ecosystem did not have the maturity. We did not have the talent, honestly, that could go and run business on their own. So if you notice during that time, in the 2000s, almost all businesses were run by founders, by entrepreneurs, by the Reliances, Tatas, Birlas, what have you.
Yeah.
So thoda early tha, but that was the reason to try to, seize an opportunity that was unfolding.
Yeah. We're so glad that you took that move, and we're very proud of entrepreneurs who have built great ecosystems. I wouldn't say you've built a business, you've created an
You
ecosystem.
can be very glad and proud, लेकिन मेरे जो पैसे नुकसान हो गए कौन देगा?
What has changed?
I'm not very glad. Neither am I proud.
Okay. What has changed, Anupam, in the talent aspect of India from where you were and where you are now today?
I think quite a lot has changed. तो मैं आपको बताता हूँ क्या change हुआ है, right? I'll tell you through a story. So when I came back, I wanted to hire a product manager. So there was no role called product management in India at that time. There was project manager. तो किसको अगर मैं समझाने लगूँ what is the product manager, पल्ले ही नहीं पड़ता था लोगों को, right? Because there was no products being built in India. हम services कर रहे थे, IT services. तो project management ठीक है लोग समझते थे. तो I was very frustrated. भाई मैं product management कहाँ से लाऊँ? So I had a gentleman from Indian Express come to meet me, a reporter, because he wanted to interview me about what I was doing. तो मुझे समझ में आया बातों बातों में intelligent है बंदा and very passionate about the internet space. So he became my first product manager. I taught him product management.
Wow.
Then I needed to hire a digital marketing manager. अभी वो भी कहीं काम मिले, right? So I met a PR girl, right? And she again was very excited about digital. So I said, भाई तुम ये सब छोड़ो, इतने पैसे नहीं बनेंगे. You come and start handling marketing for us. This is how we used to hire. Today I can boldly go and sell my HR, whoever, भाई मेरे को ये सब roles चाहिए, and you know it's pretty much the same as the West. So the world has kind of leveled out. The talent pool that has been created in the last decade, अगर मैं fully honest रहूँ तो I will say it's not as good as the Valley as yet in terms of engineers particularly, product managers, design talent काफ़ी अच्छा हो गया है. You do find it in pockets even better than the Valley, but अभी भी थोड़ा thin है. The breadth is not that much. But there is nothing to hold you back anymore from getting your work done or starting an enterprise to compete with the best in the world, right? You might need a few extra people. You might need to get some leadership from the US. You might need to do a few things. But today the ecosystem is ready and ripe to build epic companies from India for the world, right? That has become my big view. Just a quick line on that. अगर आप traditionally देखोगे, I know we are going completely off some of the things you want to talk about, but India में चीज़ भूख किस चीज़ की रही है? What has been the one big issue in India? It is मौका, opportunity. पहले लेबर जाता था इंडिया से, आज भी जाता है मिडिल ईस्ट में. इंडिया का ही लेते हैं because they are some of the best, also because we have a lot of people. Then we realized भाई डॉक्टर्स बन गए तो टिकट लग गई, right? We became the best doctors in the world. US doctors, Indian, even in the Middle East. समझ में आया engineer बन गए to make a lot of money. World over, वगैरह आप जाओ. And a lot of funding is happening. So we will become the best entrepreneurs in the world, unquestionably, right? Unquestionably, and that will happen by the end of this decade, not much later than that.
Visual that came in front of us. Every organization, large organization, wants to innovate at the pace of startups, want to innovate new things, want a very agile culture. What do you think changes as organizations become bigger, and how can they look at startups?
I think the simple answer is they can't, right? And they should try because that's what you're there for.
But as an investor, you would also want some of your investments, and some of them have become very big organizations. Your early bets in Ola and some of the other pieces. So, how do they remain nimble?
Yeah, like I said, they can't. They can remain big, right? But maturity does happen. So you look at Google is the one who wrote the paper about all you need is attention, which is the transformer technology which ChatGPT is based on, right? Google knew about social media. They tried Orkut, right? Meta knew about artificial intelligence. But the problem is that as you become bigger and bigger, you have more and more to lose than to gain. As soon as you shift to protecting what you have to lose versus हमको क्या है यार, कुछ खोने को कुछ है ही नहीं तो पाना ही है, it is very hard to become nimble because now your mentality has changed and moved to risk management, right, versus opportunity maximization, right? So that's my honest view, but one has to try. I can tell you which ways you should certainly not take to. One company does, I wouldn't say nimble, but certainly flies in the face of what I'm saying, which is Apple. But let's remember, Apple has not followed the traditional path. It's been through its ups and downs, and it's certainly not nimble. They have an ecosystem that they've locked you in, and therefore they're able to create more and more value. Apple has completely missed the AI revolution, right? They're way behind, right? So the only reason they keep succeeding in building more value is because they have a network effects business that completely locks you in. But back to you can't, but you must try. So what I can tell you is the ways that you certainly should not try. One is to take your existing business and try to infuse some, startup, get some kid to run it or infuse some startup culture. It'll be a disaster. The second is to start newer businesses within the same architecture and operating model that you run current business. Disaster. The only way to try to have some hope is to let go. So you can go out there, hire a bunch of teams who work away from you, do what the hell they want, fund them, hope something works out. But to try to catch the next wave in your big organization is really hard, if not impossible.
Okay, there are two ways to look at it. One, as a challenge for a lot of us to then go back on large organization. How can we still be nimble and work towards it? And the other way could be get into investments in some of those areas and get great startups to work with you. But trust me, many of us are trying. But after the golden handcuff finishes, the founders run away.
Yeah, absolutely. But my friend Nitish at Nazara has done a good job. He has a legacy business on mobile, which is pretty crappy if you ask me. And his entire strategy has been to acquire gaming companies, right? So in the last 2-3 years, they raised capital. And because they had the capital arbitrage, they could raise it cheap at a high valuation. They have now been acquiring companies left, right, and center. They start with 51%, and then they end up owning 100%. But they can't build it inside. They know that. They've realized that, acknowledged it, and found an alternative strategy.
Okay. When you look at now coming to you as an investor, Anupam, how important is talent and the mix of the team while you're making some of those investment decisions?
To me, I think that is because it depends on the stage that you come at. I have famously said team, talent, team, timing, TAM are 3 criteria for investing. लेकिन जब early stage होता है, when we are very early on in the game, you have to over-index on team. The only thing that matters is team, right? So ideally you want a team of 2 people. 4, 5 become too much. बड़े झगड़े होते हैं. A lot of my investments that have failed is because people cannot see eye to eye. है ना? भाई शादियों में लोगों की नहीं बनती है. और वो तो सिर्फ सुबह और रात को मिलना है. यहाँ तो पूरा दिन साथ में काम करना है. तो it's very difficult to get along with other people. और लोग आ जाते हैं with 4-5 people, 6 months of experience with each other. एक को आते आते ही बीच में उठा लिया. I'm like, dude, there is no way this is going to work out, right? So ideally, I like to look for 2 people where one can really build well and one can really sell well. So where one understands the business aspects, one understands the tech and innovation aspects. But even one single founders, I have no problem with them. A lot of people do. If there's a hungry single founder, they figure it out. मैं भी अभी single founder ही हूँ. तो we over-index on team क्योंकि हम बहुत early stage आते हैं.
Okay, interesting. One pain that comes from the community, Anupam, is a lot of founders, and many of us drive the people agenda in founder offices and founder-led organizations. Is why don't founders invest enough time and energy on the talent agenda?
It's a great question. I think some of the visionary founders do. Some of the best founders actually do that.
How much time you spend? Sorry.
हाँ मैं काफ़ी टाइम स्पेंड होता है हर वीक रिव्यू करते हैं कौन है क्यों नहीं above a certain level I interview most people at least one interview even if it's 20 minutes just to check off a few things that I like to look at.
Are we doing a bad job of quantification? Like I'll give you an example. Every senior hire that you get wrong you lose a BMW.
Yeah.
When you start looking like that, or you lose a Mercedes Maybach, that because of the opportunity cost and what. So when you start quantifying it, the impact is huge.
Yeah, no, I know, but you have many questions in what you asked me. So, kaun sa answer?
Sorry.
So I think your first question was, why don't senior leaders spend enough
Yes,
time?
I think let's stick with that.
The second is, are we not quantifying it?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the first one. I think हर एक का अलग अलग viewpoint होता है.
Okay.
Some people are over-indexed on people. Some people are very धंधा कि कितना profit निकला, कितना क्या हुआ, and they don't lay that much importance. It also depends on the nature of the business. कि manufacturing का अगर आपका धंधा है, तो honestly यार, मतलब you need good people, but you also need a lot of warm seats, right? So it depends on the business you're in. Tech businesses, with new age businesses, people become more important. And I see founders there spend a lot of time on talent strategy. So if you look at my friend Nakul's company, Browser Stack, for example, a dear friend of mine, वो अपना आधा से ज़्यादा टाइम वहाँ पर स्पेंड करता है. I can give you many examples. So it's not entirely true. I think there could be many companies, traditional companies, that understand the core competencies of their companies, of their businesses, and focus on that. मैं आपको एक बात कहूँगा, founders are, a lot of founders, or most successful founders, let's say, are some of the sharpest people in the world. अगर वो people और talent strategy को front and center नहीं कर रहे हैं, they have a very good reason. उनको समझ में आ गया है कि that is not my needle mover because of the nature of business they are in. If they know it, that is the needle mover, they will focus on that, and that is what's happening. So that's a misconception. Maybe you're looking at the wrong companies, some bad apples or some industries that don't need to focus on talent as much. To your second question, have we quantified it not enough? I think, yeah, I don't think there is a good enough job the world has done actually. Forget just India. It's really, really, really hard. Anybody I meet, they say, to make a successful company, we need a great team. Arey yaar, but what the hell is a great team? Everybody knows that. But please define great team for me. And when I ask that question, most people struggle. So I think to nail down what your culture is and what works for you is very, very critical. जैसे हमारे लिए owners, now I'm not going to get into a lot of detail क्योंकि आपका पूरा conference निकल जाएगा और मेरा पूरा दिन निकल जाएगा. But just at the top level, owners mindset, right? Where people are focused on outcomes and not the process. हमारे लिए बहुत critical है. Right? May not be for some other people, where they just want people to follow directions. Owner's mindset is not important. Owner's mindset is very important if you want to question the status quo, right? Outcome orientation, right? That's another value that we hold very, very dear. So you have to try to quantify it. Even then, these are sort of subjective values. It's very hard to put a number to it. And so ideally, you want to create enough people in the organization that know how to interview for these things.
Yeah.
And like Amazon has a concept called bar raisers. Study that and try to introduce that in your company. It's a fantastic concept that they have. And we borrow somewhat from there. And it's kind of working for us.
Super. There's so many people who are inspired by your journey. Who are you inspired by?
देखिए यार, inspiration is not a point in time. Neither, inspiration I think is a moving needle, right? And so I think you need to keep moving who you get inspired by. मेरे लिए, I don't get inspired by individuals as much as I get inspired by attributes.
Okay.
So my dad was a huge inspiration for me because he used to have a 100 rupee salary. He built an amazing life for us, factories, companies, very well known, the textile market. Steve Jobs was an incredible inspiration for me at one point. Elon Musk in terms of the way he thinks. Closer home, Mr. Mukesh Ambani in terms of just his ability to think so big. So at different points, different people have motivated me, but true inspiration comes from within. And I'll tell you why. Because motivation can get you started, but inspiration will make you unstoppable. And that has to come from within. Okay.
Superb. I'm just going to take one or two questions from the audience. I know we're running out of time, but anyone has a question, just wants to put up, okay, there's a hand over here and there. Okay, whoever gets the mic first.
Yeah, good afternoon, sir. This is Professor Swapnali. I represent Dr. D.Y. Patil Institute, D.Y. Patil University Center for Skill Development. My question to you, I am extremely great follower, I can say, on LinkedIn and Shark Tank. You always ask one thing to the, the pitchers that problem kya solve kar rahe ho? So we as Dr. D.Y. Patil University is trying to solve a problem to identify the skill gap between academics and industry. So I would like to hear from you what should be the go-to-market strategy we as university follow so that we become, established.
That's half a day workshop, ma'am. So maybe we'll have to take that offline. You want
Yeah,
a
I
word?
can quickly answer that. I think it's a great point you make, very valid point in terms of a lot of people we meet, right, who come out of colleges are simply not ready to work. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. But I think the only way to really, I don't fully understand your question in terms of are you trying to sell something so you want to know your GTM or how do you prepare the students. But I'll just comment quickly on the student part. I think the only way to address that, to get people productivity ready, is for them to do a lot of practical work while they're studying. So they must do an internship all the time, right? So I think in my view, right, and this is debatable, at least 50% of what you are doing in college needs to be practical application in real world settings, not simulations in lab settings, in actual work. And if you do that, these people will come out job ready.
All right,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Quickly come here. I don't know, don't have mic.
Yeah,
You had a hand
I
up,
have,
ma'am.
Pushkar, I have a mic here, so
Okay.
right at the back. Thanks you. Anupam, hi. If you can look at the back here. Thanks for your presence. Some of your points about people really, came home. I am Yogesh Mishra. I represent AI certification body. It's called USAII. We are a profitable company based in US. We are looking to certify people right across. So you can think about PMI or CFA for AI certification. Now my question is around building great companies and cultures, right? How important do you think is the culture piece to get right at the beginning when you are a small company? And another question that I have is on the AI stack, India developing its own AI stack, the whole debate that you're now seeing, right? The big guys not investing, then government investing, then the small guys coming up. Mr. Vembu very famously has just retired from CEO position and now going to put his time in R&D in HR, in AI. So what's your thoughts on that? Just 2 points.
Yeah,
Culture.
so you had two questions. The first one was how important is culture when you're starting out? You can't stop talking about it. It's too fancy a word when you start. Culture is something that is a reflection of the founder's principles and beliefs when you start. It is that simple. If you have a founder with great values and principles, that will become the implied culture. It does not matter what your explicit culture is. Cultures are always implicit. What the leadership does day to day, that is what becomes the culture. So that's how cultures are built, not by putting stuff in the hallway and telling people, तूने ऐसा क्यों नहीं किया, तूने वैसा क्यों नहीं किया. आपको वो चाल चलनी है as the founder, and the -1 has to walk the talk. If they do it, that becomes the culture. So that's very easy question. The second one was, where does India stand in terms of AI? Very quickly, I'll try to debunk a little bit of or just try to, how much time do we have?
Maybe a minute or so.
A minute or so. Okay, so we'll try.
It's important, so I think.
Yeah. So I was wondering in which direction to go, depending on the time. But let me just give you a broad perspective of AI. It's very complex, right? But if you look at AI, what are the three components where people are creating scale and competency? It is data, it is compute, and it is the algorithms. The most leverage, which means with the smallest input, outsized output, but also the hardest to do, is algorithms. Is what we have discovered now, right? Slight change in algorithms and approach can transform outcome, like what DeepSeek did vis-a-vis what the other guys were doing. Data is becoming commoditized. First, people thought the Googles will win because of the data, but DeepSeek simply did distillation from existing models and completely commoditized that piece, right? So that is becoming less and less value. The second piece is compute. Compute also has some leverage, because if you find newer ways to manage compute, your cost per inference will go down significantly and cost per learning will go down significantly, right? So these two are the areas where the battle lines are drawn. In India, unfortunately, we don't have as much talent in both these areas, right? That's the bad news. The good news is that we have some talent which is extremely deep, and a lot of the talent sitting in the US, which makes it very wide and deep, is actually Indian. So we have a lot of AI engineers in all the IITs in India. You will find incredible talent, some of the best in the world in different AI areas. They are all now working on building the AI India stack in some way or the other. The AI mission that was recently announced, we've been part of that, working with the government in terms of helping figure out some of these things, is a game changer. A lot of these IIT professors are now going to apply for those grants and those funds. So already you're seeing in the last 3-4 days, if you've seen the newspaper, everybody's announcing a new foundation model, right? This takes me back to 2023. What's the guy's name who started OpenAI? I'm sorry.
Sam Altman. Yeah,
Sam Altman, right? Sam was asked in an audience about this big, maybe a little bigger, that, hey, where does India stand a chance if somebody had 10 million? And he said, you can't beat us, it's impossible, right? And I'm so glad he's been proven wrong by the Chinese now. And it's only a matter of time. I can assure you, by the end of this year, at least that's my strong belief, this whole foundational AI layer will get commoditized. Right? The value then will be created on the application layer of AI, and the guys who can create network effects, much like you saw in the .com era where the Instagrams and the Googles came out. So that's where the new battle and the new war will happen. And I think Indians are already solid contributors in that area by way of working in Meta and the Googles in India. So I think we have not a handicap, but actually an advantage in AI as you look out. Not until now, but as you look out, I think we're going to do very well.
Great.
What's
Thanks.
interesting is, Anupam, your answer pointed out that the route towards that is through talent.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if that's the onus on all of us to make sure that we are thriving that talent in our organizations, in our ecosystem and colleges as well.
Yeah, I know. I understand. He has a job to do, and I notice how uncomfortable he gets every time the conversation moves away from talent to something else. So you're absolutely
I'm just
right.
trying to contextualize it back.
I agree with you, because ultimately it's the human beings who will develop whatever else that.
No, but we're extremely proud of what entrepreneurs are doing in this ecosystem and paving a road for newer opportunities for talent as well. Because without those organizations that entrepreneurs like you are building and investing, the newer jobs are not going to come as well. So we are looking forward to that.
I mean, I'll leave with this, right? There are two things I just want to leave with because they're very current. right? I'm just going to take another minute, and because I have such a big HR gathering, one thing is, this whole Gen Z thing and 30-hour work week and 70-hour work week and 90 and 4. Stop obsessing with that. It's absolute shit. Right? Sorry for my French, but I'll tell you why. Every generation in their 20s is seen as irresponsible, nutcut, nikamma. Happens with every generation. When the millennials came, all the older guys were saying, ये देखो ऐसे कपड़े पहन के आते हैं ऑफिस में. ये कोई तरीका होता है, they have no responsibility. So Gen Z is going through their 20s. But the Gen Zs I work with, they are extremely accountable. What you have to do with Gen Z is give them the illusion of freedom. Right?
I love how you put it.
And allow them to involve their passions into their work. If you do these two things, find them roles that they're passionate about and give them the illusion of freedom, right, in a seemingly authentic way, you'll get the best out of them. And it's a matter of a couple of years, 30s are going to hit, और फिर दूध का दूध और पानी का पानी हो जाएगा. जब मम्मी डैडी के घर से निकल के खुद के बिल्स भरने पड़ेंगे ना, सब ठीक हो जाएगा. So stop obsessing about that. If they are passionate, they will work as hard as you want. At least that's what we are seeing. One thing that you should obsess about, that not enough people are worrying about as yet. This AI thing is happening faster. Think about how fast you think it's happening, and then multiply that by 10. By the end of, in the next couple of months, your biggest challenge is not going to be how to manage, hire, retain people. Your biggest challenge is going to be how to let people go. If you want to stay in the race, you're going to have to make your organization more and more productive. So your biggest challenge is going to be how to either upskill people or let them go. If you are not ready for that, you're not ready for your role. So start obsessing about that and not about Gen Z. It's not going to matter. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anupam. We've totally run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us.